They don't have to be even next to you to get in your head. They can make you see whatever it is they want to see. They make you do whatever it is they want to do. So they don't have to change your behavior by inserting an artificial device. Then if we look at the large number, and these numbers are large, 2% conservative, 3% moderately conservative, the population of the United States. That's a lot of people that are being admit to something involved with an alien abduction program. And then you look at that figure multiplied on a worldwide basis, that's a lot of people. Maybe about 15% have these devices. But if you look in totality at the abduction scenario as it is all over the world, you see that most often there is the taking of ova and sperm. And that, has got to at least logically indicate, even if you use Occam's razor, which the simplest of suggestion is probably the truth, that there's something genetic going on. So if some culture or some advanced group feels a responsibility for Homo sapien or for the human population, and not particularly for altruistic reasons, maybe they're trying to save their own butt, because maybe what we're doing on this planet is not so good for the rest of the solar system, which may be not so good for the rest of the universe. So how do you solve the problem? You change the being. So you change Homo sapien to something like Homo noeticus, a new human. And from the way I see it, and you look at children, you listen to what they have to say, you look at worldwide events, you look what's going on in the Middle East, started in Egypt with people who are less than 35 years of age, using electronic devices, not lifting up a gun, but lifting up a computer, Facebook, Twitter, all the modern media. This is in the hands of the young people. And if you listen to what these kids have to say, it's quite amazing, and their abilities. So perhaps the device is sending information back to these Enki-like persons who are genetically modifying us as a sampling to see, well, how well are we doing? How well are these genetic changes actually working in certain specific individuals?
That is fascinating.
That's my theory.
Yeah, but that's very, very interesting, and it seems to fall, that theory seems to answer some of the questions that we know are happening to our civilization. That the Russians, even in pre-communist Russia, with the work of A.R. Luria, was talking about creating a whole new kind of human being. The Nazis were talking about that, with the new man, creating a new kind of creature, the new human man. Very well could be something like that's actually going on, and that's interesting. And
that may not be the answer in totality, because let's say that's under the assumption that it's only one group that's doing this, but we know from history historically that there may be many different groups visiting this planet with different motives. David Jacobson, for example, thinks they're building, hybrid entities. Well, maybe there's a group that is building hybrid entities. I'm not going to say that's not true. Perhaps if somebody's experiment is a total failure, then you got to have something else to fall back on.
yeah.
But I think, like I said, I don't think that the taking of ova and sperm is for the purpose of making omelets.
No, it's obviously something to do with the development and the continual upgrading or something with the human species, the human race.
Yeah, and then if you go, by what Zecharia Sitchin wrote about with the Anunnaki, and and looking at the Sumerian literature, and actually naming the scientist, naming the geneticist Enki, who came here and made us, or our relatives, or our predecessors, whoever they may have been, went into whatever was ever here. Maybe it was Neanderthal.
Yeah, whatever.
And genetically manipulated Neanderthal, with the splicing of Anunnaki genes, and made Homo sapien. They're still looking for the missing link. Well, I personally don't think there is a missing link.
I don't either. No. That's why I have always said that the subject is not evolution. Evolution is not the subject. The subject is intervention. I think intervention is where we need to look, not evolution.
That's correct.
Somebody seems to have intervened in our natural evolution and is creating something new. And that's why there's a lot of connections between us and the ancient and prehistoric people, but we seem to be a wholly different kind of creature from the Neanderthal. I mean, you know, our skin is different. The way our minds think. We have the ability to do things that ancient men didn't have. Or maybe there's all kinds of changes that are happening to the human race.
Right, and that begs another question, that if Neanderthal was here, which we believe, you know, most of science, archaeology, anthropology believes that Neanderthal existed. There's certainly more than one set of bones for Neanderthal. And this intervention, as you call it, occurred, and Homo sapien was produced, then it begs the question, what happened to Neanderthal? You know, we're both not saying that evolution doesn't exist.
No.
Because, you know, I think that if you walk on land, well, maybe you don't need webbed fingers anymore, so the webbing disappears. That's evolution, evolution of the species. So what happened to Neanderthal? Is it possible that Neanderthal didn't die out, but went off in its own direction and became something else? Maybe the hairy big men that we see today.
That's right, and the Bigfoot or whatever.
Right, maybe that is actually an offshoot of what Neanderthal was, you know, thousands of years ago.
Yeah, and even in the Bible, and we've talked about this before, in the Old Testament, in the Bible, God says, "Come, let us make man in our image and after our likeness." One of the leading rabbis that I used to talk with for many years said, nowhere does it say God created man. Go back and read Genesis when it says, God said, "Come, let us make man in our image, after our likeness." It doesn't say he's making man. He's making man in our image, after our likeness. It implies that there's some kind of an intervention in the life forms which are already here. And in the Hebrew tradition, God is saying, let us take what's here and redo it. Let's make man like us. And then the scripture goes on to say in Genesis, later on, God talking about man, it says, man has become as one of us. He's like one of us. He thinks like we do. Well, this could be the intervention I'm talking about.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, I guess, the Hebraic passage about the tohu vavahu.
Yes, tohu vavahu, and that's in Genesis 1:2, where it says, "And the earth was without form and void." But actually, the word is tohu vavahu in Hebrew, which means not the earth was without form and void, but that the earth became a waste and a desolation. So it implies, because logic alone would say, if God created the heavens and the earth, and it was without form and void, what does that mean? God creates something and has no form and it's void. No, the words were not translated correctly. It says, in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth, because the word in Genesis 1:1 is Elohim. El in Hebrew is God, but Lohim is a plural. It's a feminine plural. So the correct translation in Genesis at 1:1 is, in the beginning, Elohim, the gods created the heavens and the earth. And the second, Genesis 1:2, and the earth became a waste and a desolation. That tohu vavohu is only used twice in the Bible. The second place that tohu vavohu is used is in Jeremiah, the 4th chapter, where Jeremiah, I think it's the 4th chapter, where Jeremiah says, "I was given a vision by God of the earth when it was a beautiful paradise." Jeremiah says, "God showed me the earth when it was a beautiful paradise, and incredibly gorgeous and beautiful animals, but there were no man, no humans on the earth. And it was a meeting place for the Elohim, a meeting place for the Elohim, the gods. And yet there was no man. And then he says, while God was showing him us beautiful cities and beautiful animals, then he says, and then God showed me tohu vavohu, that the earth became a waste and a desolation. Well, that sounds like at one time the earth was a beautiful paradise for somebody, not us. It says no man was there. And then something happened, probably some terrible catastrophe, maybe a nuclear war, or some sort of a terrible catastrophe in which the earth became a waste and a desolation. Well, fascinating how much is right there in the Bible in relation to what we're talking about, an alien civilization dealing with us.
As long as we're on the subject, to extend this a little bit, it's a true question now I want to ask you. William Henry brought up a very interesting conundrum. Going by Zechariah's work, who said the Anunnaki came here because Nibiru, their native planet, was having a degradation problem with the atmosphere, and they decided to build a firmament of gold, and that the earth was rich in gold, and they wanted to mine the gold from here, turn it into a powder or dust, and make this artificial firmament around the planet. Well, William Henry brought up a very interesting point. I'd like to get your view on it. And that is, he said basically the Anunnaki were alchemists, and that they were far ahead in their skills of alchemy. And so he said, why would an alchemist then want to come to a planet to mine gold when they could take a space rock and convert it to gold?
Well, first of all, this whole concept in alchemy, from what I understand, taking a base metal and turning it into gold, is philosophical. It's a metaphor, and I don't think that in real alchemy was saying that you can take a base metal and turn it into, in point of fact, gold. But it was a concept or an idea, a spiritual metaphor of taking base knowledge and turning it into brilliant metaphysical understanding of things. And so that's, I think, was what alchemy actually is saying. But then if you want to talk about, in fact, gold, like Zechariah 6 is talking about, I am sure that whoever these, for lack of a better term, alien civilizations that are out there, and there's just no doubt in my mind they would be interested in alchemy, because alchemy is the study of the chemistry of life.